Welcome to If You Live It. Welcome to this Friday conversation where we dive deeper into a spiritual principle that is guided by, created by, provided by God. Where the vessel you see talking to you, Mason, isn't coming up with this, but is but a channel for you to have a message delivered directly to you, where you are, however you're consuming this. And let's start a little different today. Let us start with a prayer we can use as part of our journey to understand today, but every single day that we have. So let's close our eyes and let's listen for a minute. To thee, O Lord, thank you for the gift of this day. Thank you for the gift of the opportunity to be part of a conversation series where my part is but to deliver something that is coming directly from you. And for those who are seeing this, listening to this, being part of this, thank you for their presence. Thank you for their ears and their eyes and their value to this world where they provide it on a regular basis. Please open the hearts of those consuming this, that they would be able to take in what is of value to them and let go freely of that which is not. Thank you for the gift that the value of moving towards you is found more in the steps we take than in the words we use. Every day, I start the day by surrendering the day over. Every day. As soon as consciousness is brought back to a lens of awareness that what I am is back with this body, while the eyes are still closed, to thee, O Lord, this day is surrendered over in its entirety. May your will be done. Thank you for the gift of it. Amen. Eyes open, I'm out the door. Throughout the day, around the clock, nonstop, every single stimuli that arises into awareness is surrendered, is let go of, is watched. The key to surrender is watching what arises without trying to change it. And then where you find some attachment or aversion to it, diving deeper into the layers of it and surrendering over each layer until you get to the root of what is the sponsor of that particular fear, that particular worry, that particular attachment, that feeling of need or desire or want or craving. And then when you see that inner truth and you surrender that over, your attachment to it, your desire to be plagued by it any longer, a whole new world opens up every time. And you move in rapid succession towards truths that you had no idea were available to you until the next moment, just past the surrender, just past the forgiveness. As the day moves along, it's continually one perfect moment after another perfect moment, fueled solely by service. Everything all day is governed by service. I serve God by serving you. I serve God by serving my wife. I serve God by serving friends and acquaintances, co-workers. I serve God by serving my son. I serve God by serving this body to make it as healthy as it can be when it can be. I serve God by saying yes to things that are of value and doing them when the opportunity arises. And if not worrying about it. I say yes by surrendering over my bank accounts, money, fears. Anything that arises from love to fear is surrendered over. It's watched, it's investigated. All day, these feet move in such a way as they go from one aspect of service to another aspect of service. And it's really no different from you watching this, hearing this, listening to this. The only difference between a life surrendered, a life where one is experiencing and witnessing the reality of God present at all times, is one that's been contextualized by surrender, forgiveness, gratitude, and constant acts of service. No work I do, no projects I lead, no contracts I acquire, no deadlines that are met, are anything other than the expression of service playing out in that particular way. I don't market services for my private companies. I don't solicit business. I don't say no to contracts that come in that I would rather be doing something else with. I didn't say no to this any longer. It's about serving you. It's about serving the world. It's about being of service to every single person you come in contact with. And sometimes that service is not allowing yourself to be part of that relationship anymore, not allowing yourself to be part of that business anymore, or that job anymore, or in that friendship anymore. 8 years ago, I was an alcoholic who knew God because of the experience with God that was undeniable. I didn't know what to do with it, and I had drank for 12 straight years to try and hide from a calling that is now being presented to you, even in this video. And over those 12 years, I did everything possible to let my will be that which sparked the next moment. And I never found happiness. I never found joy. I never found a persistent sense of satisfaction. And I never found a connection with God that was regular, ongoing, sustaining, at the center of this life and everything that went on around it. And then at the end of that drinking career, I was planning to kill myself. I was going to do it in a vehicle without a seatbelt on, going extremely fast speeds into a wall. And I was looking for walls, and I was scouting opportunities, and I had genuinely reached a place where exploration felt more desirable than waking up another day. I was waking up and I was urinating and defecating blood from all the alcohol I was drinking and the food I was eating. I had reached a place of, for me, obesity. I had reached expiration. I was riddled with fear and desire, scared of a reality that I never thought could be different but hoped it would be, desiring everything that I could get my hands on that would create maybe a reality of some joy, something pleasant, something happy. And then I'd get drunk again because that was the only way I could find moments of respite. And then at the end, getting drunk didn't provide any respite. It didn't provide any relief. It just provided more guilt and more shame, and the cycle repeated itself, and I was filled with more fear and more desire for a life that I hoped would be possible, fearful of taking the steps necessary to move towards a reality where I was letting go of all the things that had brought me to hell. I was in hell. It was all around me. It was expansive. It felt like eternity, and it looked like there was no way out. And then I was presented with an opportunity again where time stopped, just like it had done previously in life, and a choice was presented. A choice was presented in such a way that choose me or die. Choose another way to live, or choose death and have to come back and do it all over again from this particular vantage point, viewpoint, and standpoint. And there was a bit of logic that arose in that moment for me, which was outside of time still, but it was, if life is this bad, doesn't that mean that there should also be an opportunity for life to be good? And that little bit of logic allowed me to say, all right, Lord, I'm going to choose you. And in times past, when moments like this presented itself, I said yes to God also with words. But then the next day, went back to drinking again, went back to using drugs, went back to chasing after women, went back to doing whatever it was that separated me from a connection with the divine, that had me hiding. Pornography, whatever. The difference this time was I said, yes, God, I choose you. In that moment, all desire to drink vanished. But I knew I had to do something this time, different. And this saying, God helps those who help themselves, came in such a way that it was, I hear you. Okay, how do I help myself this time? Luckily, someone in my life who knew I was an alcoholic, well before I fully was ready to do something about it, said, hey, if you ever reach a point where you want to be done with this thing, why don't you come to me to a meeting? And I had been to meetings in the past. And I even knew I was an alcoholic at the time that life was about to end. But I hadn't felt like my life had become unmanageable. But it had. It had reached a point where I was, I don't know, 52 days past rent being due, which meant I was 7 days away from being put out on the street. I had no money in my bank account. I was probably 60 pounds of fat, heavier than what I needed to be even be skinny fat. I had left a world behind that promise was found in, but it wasn't promise that was going to be for me. I would find myself naked and alone, crying, drunk, with the windows shades drawn. And then this moment happened, and I said, yes, Lord. And I remembered that this beautiful human had offered me this gift of going to a meeting. And in that moment of clarity, I realized my life, I am an alcoholic. I am powerless over this thing, and it has legitimately become unmanageable. Every single level I thought I would push past, that I would never reach, I had reached and passed it. Every level of depravity, that you think you can get to, you will push past it if your addiction continues. The same with this addiction to the mind, whether it be forces of anger or fear, desire, cycles of shame and guilt, apathy, grief, pride, luciferic pulls and aversions, tending to be honest and not. You will find yourself in hell. Many of you watching this and listening to this maybe know you're in hell because you haven't felt happy, genuine happiness. You can't even remember since. You maybe have moments of where something feels better than another, but you're not waking up excited for the opportunity to see what humanness has in store for you. You're not going to bed free from guilt and shame because of decisions you made. Your side of the street isn't clean. So I said, yeah, I'll go to a meeting. And then this world of Alcoholics Anonymous opened itself up to me. And these steps opened themselves up. And then this whole thing changed because I started to see several months in the reality that what I was doing is I was actively walking different. And by walking different, I mean making a choice after another choice, after another choice, after another choice. And I was getting busy living. I was walking in the footsteps of the figurehead of the religion I grew up with, Jesus. I was serving my community, being of service, making amends where possible, working the steps, having a sponsor, going to meetings every day, building a community. And before I knew it, I wasn't a deadbeat anymore. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't alone anymore. There was an entire world of value representing itself in a new way every day that was exploding with possibilities, that was exuding opportunity. And it came through this process of surrender and forgiveness and being of service to the world around you by giving and not taking. And that's when I realized my entire life, this entire world, is nothing but a manifestation, an illusion, sponsored by the ego, which is a creation of God, to seemingly create separateness from that which created us. And so on and so forth. This journey continued in such a way where everything changed. A way where the reality of God became present in such an immense moment that was many moments expounding on one another, where all of a sudden, through a final surrender of even this life of existence, of anything that was left at the end of the road of what I possibly had any attachment or aversion to whatsoever, including the belief system from millennia and lifetimes past that religion was the way to God. That final fear of blasphemy was surrendered over because everything has to be surrendered over to have your own subjective experience of the Creator. And I was sitting in a car coming back from a workout, pulling up to a grocery store in Indianapolis, Indiana, and everything changed. And a sensation physically came over. A sensation visually came over. An awareness was present that everything in the moment of exactly now is entirely different than anything that had ever been experienced before. And in that moment, it likened back to what had happened to me at 20 when I had an experience with God and knew God was real because of that experience. It pulled me back. I knew I had to surrender over even the experience of what was taking place, this ecstasy. And so then this body, after I don't know how long it sat in the car watching everything change to the point where the only thing that was present was this immense energy of love radiating from all things, showing how all things were connected and all thing is one thing, and that one thing is self. And we describe that by I, and that I is how we know that we are, and that God seemingly individuates into all these eyes, but the same eye of the cat, and the same eye of the dog, and the same eye of the tree, and the same eye of you, and the same eye of me, and the same eye of everything is all one thing. And how it all works together, and how we're not actually doing anything. And so this body gets up, and this body makes its way into this grocery store. And it was miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle, to the point where I was shown that there is no causality. There is no this or that. There is no duality. Those are only manifestations of the ego, of the mind trying to create a linear progression through this lifetime, through this, with this body at practice and at play. But that I saw was an absolute illusion. And the interconnectedness and the synchronicities are not happenstance. They are regular all the time. One thing, God breathing in and expelling love. And nothing has ever been the same since. Ever. Since that moment. And that love represented itself with such immense truth that what came back to me was also a teaching from Dr. Hawkins, which is even love has to be surrendered over. Even enlightenment has to be surrendered over. Even the reality of God present has to be surrendered over. For we have to continually let go of our attachments to things. And had I stayed in that Satchidananda, that state of ecstasy, which lasted a long time, I would have never left. There was something inside of me that said, based on hearing it, this too has to be surrendered. And so it was. And for several months, that state of ecstasy was present. Not around the clock, but constant until it was surrendered. Constant until it was surrendered. Constant until it was surrendered. And it is beyond your wildest imagination as to what happens when the reality of God presents itself as the self in all things, as one thing, as I in greater or lesser degrees of intensity present. This life is not what you think it is. And what can happen for you is far beyond what any movie could ever describe or explain. And these words cannot serve as your steps. But what's been shared with you about the steps that are taken daily, about the feet, if you followed me, you wouldn't see anything extraordinary. You wouldn't even really know what was going on. It would just look like a person moving throughout life. But every time that something arises into awareness that creates friction, that brings about confusion, that has anything of it, anything, it's surrendered over internally. All day, I watch everything arise and fall away. Now, when everything changed, there was no longer these attachments and aversions that had been part of life previous to. It was more subtle. It was and is more difficult to put into words the intricacies of how the ego will work until it vanishes altogether. Now, you always have this thing called a body while you're here. There is, regardless of completely transcending the mind, of having no attachment to it whatsoever and seeing it vanish and disappear, it still operates as an antenna. But what really starts happening is when everything changes, when you reach that doorway and God opens it and pulls you through it into an entirely new subjective reality, is that the collective starts becoming that which needs to be surrendered over. It's no longer the personal. And so you're never free of negative forces. You're never free of evil spirits. You're never free of the nuisances of those. But if you could watch the steps and understand what's happening underneath, you realize that the subjective reality, the perception of life, is completely different than what you'd be watching. What steps are you taking? Are your steps filled with honesty, radical honesty, brutal honesty, truth, virtue? Are you serving your community? Are you serving your parents? Are you serving your spouse? Are you serving your loved ones? Are you serving your significant other by when they're angry or they do something, by not lashing back out? Are you serving your children by giving them the opportunity to freely choose the life that is for them to choose and not the one that you want to choose for them? Are you surrendering over the fear you have that someone in your life might be doing something catastrophic that is going to create an issue and you have this desire to change it? Are you surrendering over the belief that you can change something for someone or change someone else? Are you surrendering over the belief that you can change yourself? You think you're you. You think you're whoever your name is, but you're not. Are you willing to surrender over all attachment to beliefs, to opinions, to positionality? Are you willing to forgive everyone all the time, around the clock, no matter what? Are you ready to surrender over every single experience you attach or are averse to? Those are the steps you have to take. In this particular program, these 12 steps are steps that you can physicalize, where you can watch your feet move into places that you never thought possible. This program is a pathway that involves the mind, involves the intellect, involves the heart, involves service, involves surrender, involves forgiveness. There are very few pathways that you will find in life that have a definable, workable chart where you do this and this and this and this, and you keep doing this and this and this and this. And by the time we get to steps 10, 11, and 12, it's about creating a continual connection, allowing that connection with a creator, with love to be more present in your life on a daily basis. So every day, are you waking up surrendering the day over? Are you living your entire day in service to God by serving mankind around you? Are you going to bed every night on your knees saying, thank you, Lord, for the gift of this day, surrendering over your attachments and your aversions that were part of it, asking for forgiveness where forgiveness is needed? Are you doing those things? Or are you taking? Are you demanding? Are you fearful? Are you judging? Are you taking your opinions and trying to make them opinions of others? Are you trying to change the world around you when you haven't even changed yourself? The world doesn't need another person to try to change it who isn't truthful, who isn't honest, who isn't integrous. Don't put that garbage out there. If you want to change the world, ask God to change you. And you have a part to play in that. And those are the steps you take every day, around the clock. If you want to know God, it takes 1 billion steps. Not 5, not 10, not some these days, some those days. It doesn't mean when you fall short that you beat yourself up. When you fall short, you say, God, I fell short. Please forgive me and help me do this better next time. Let me see where it was I fell short. I said I wasn't going to do that again. I did it again. And it's forgiving yourself. You have to forgive yourself hundreds, if not thousands of times in this journey to God till you realize that God doesn't judge you. You judge you. The world judges you because that's what the world is. God doesn't judge you. God knows everything you are, everything you do, every choice you're possibly going to make because you're not outside of God. It's the grand illusion here. So watch my feet. That's your mantra for the world. Watch my feet. Stop proselytizing about a religion. Stop proselytizing about things you don't know anything about. Stop proselytizing about God if you don't know God with your words. Proselytize with your feet. Watch how the world changes around you when your feet are righteous. I hope you found something of value here. I'm grateful that you found this. And if you're still here as we're finishing this recording, many blessings on your journey. In April of 2025, we'll start having these meetings online twice a month, in person twice a month, and they will be about everything we just talked about. If you've been looking for truth in the chaos, stay with us. Get busy living. If you live it, a pathway to freedom. It's a gift for you if you're ready. Yeah.